Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Dixie. I'm going to do the Booktube Newbie Tag. I'm not fully a newbie, I guess, because I do have about a dozen videos up on my channel. I just haven't gotten around to doing the tag, so I think I might as well do it now. So let's go. Question 1. Why did you start this Booktube channel? Well, in my early 20s, I'm in my early 40s now, but in my early 20s, I really got into like a literary scene, and I had a whole community of people that we would read books, we would talk books, we would get drunk and talk about books, we would smoke cigarettes and talk about books. And then we would share books and ideas, and it was just such a fun time. And I see that a lot on YouTube with, a lot of the younger people on here, and I just think it's such a beautiful thing. And I thought, why not try to kind of recapture that essence in my 40s and try to find some like-minded and not like-minded people on here that can just talk books. I also haven't found a lot of people on here reading literary fiction, which is my main genre. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places. If you are someone who reads a lot of literary fiction, please comment below. I'd love to follow your channel. A lot of what I see on here, and this is by no means shade to anybody, it's hard to put yourself out there, but a lot of what I see is kind of reading as an aesthetic instead of reading for ideas and reading to learn and have a deeper discussion on literature and the art of literature. So that's kind of why I'm throwing my hat in the ring. Not that I feel totally confident I can do that, but I'm going to try. I think there's a lot more depth to reading that gets lost in, having the prettiest bookshelves and, the most aesthetic cup of coffee and cozy reading corner. Those things are fun, but I think that kind of misses the point for me of why I read. Question 2, what are some fun and unique things I can bring to Booktube? I do believe that everyone on here, at least that I've seen, adds something to the conversation. Everybody is unique and has their own perspective, and so I feel like this question's a bit difficult to answer. But I can kind of combine it with question 3. I'm looking down here because I have notes, by the way. Question 3 says, what are you most excited about for this new channel? And, that kind of goes hand in hand, or maybe some fun things that I could bring are, on a personal level, I'm just really excited to read more and prioritize reading. I've gotten away from reading as much as I used to. I used to read about 2 books a week, and I don't do that anymore. I'd like to. I read about 1 book a week, maybe 1.5, sometimes 2. I'm a slow reader, but I'd like to use this channel to kind of explore ways of getting back into prioritizing reading. I also think it would be fun because I get the majority of my books from thrift stores and garage sales and little free libraries. I think that content will be really fun to see what I can find, because I don't always read the most new releases. In fact, I would say less than half of what I read is new, brand new release. So I also haven't found a lot of people doing audiobook reviews, and I do listen to audiobooks. Some people don't consider that reading. Debate that in the comments. I'd actually like to hear what you think. So I'd like to talk about, just maybe every couple months do an audiobook roundup of different audiobooks I've listened to. I'm planning on rereading a lot of the books that I did read 20 years ago, and just kind of seeing if they hold up and how they feel now, 20 years later. And I might even read some books from childhood and do that. So that'll be fun. I also want to read a lot of the classics that I never got to. And hopefully start a classics book club, or maybe find one to join. So if you have any, please let me know. But overall, I think I'm excited to just learn how to be better at this YouTube thing and just convey who I am and put myself out there and become part of the community. I'm really, really excited about that. Question 4, why do you love reading? This is hard for me to explain. I love reading because I love writing as an art form. So I'm a writer myself. I have an MFA in creative writing. I collect beautiful sentences. I just love language. And I've recently found out I have aphantasia. If you don't know what that is, it's that my mind's eye, I can't really see pictures and images. I think more in words. And so maybe that's why I love writing so much, which, makes it a bit difficult when I'm trying to read like Steinbeck or somebody else that has a lot of vivid imagery. I'm not always the reader for that. So And another big reason I love to read is I am nosy. When I was younger, I think in middle school, there was a sociology class, and I had no idea what that was. But when I found out it was a study of like groups and people, as it was explained to me, I became very curious. And I realized that in my reading life, I really just want to learn about character and people's motives and why people behave the way they do, and just glimpse into other humanity that I have not seen or maybe haven't really deeply thought about. I love books that have depth and make you think and have strong themes. So those are, different reasons why I love reading. There's probably way more. Question 5. What book or series got you into reading? Standout series for me when I was really young was Babysitter's Little Sister. I didn't read Babysitter's Club. I felt like it was just too much. But I read a ton of Babysitter's Little Sister, and I got a little older. I read Fear Street. I loved Goosebumps. I loved, but Fear Street I loved. So I do have a little background in horror. The Outsiders, though, is my favorite book. If you saw my time capsule book review, I kind of pontificate on how much I love The Outsiders. I read that book when I was probably about 11 years old, and it changed my life. It really changed my life to the power of what books can do. So I guess those are kind of the books that got me started. And again, in my early 20s, I read a lot of, I guess, like postmodern fiction. I read a lot of books in that little group I was telling you about that were, like Don DeLillo, White Noise. We tried to read Pynchon. We tried to read Ayn Rand. Ugh. And no offense to those who like her, but I want my time back from Fountainhead. But anyway, we read David Foster Wallace. I loved Zadie Smith, White Teeth especially, and Autograph Man. Just great books that really solidified me as a reader and a writer. And my very favorite book from that time was A Confederacy of Dunces. I absolutely love that book. I probably think that's my second favorite book of all time. And I did reread it recently, and it held up and then some. So, yeah, those are the books that kind of got me into reading, kept me reading. I was always a reader. Question 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I have kind of dabbled in watching Booktube since the pandemic, and I don't feel like I have a really good handle on all of the facets of Booktube is. So it's hard for me to answer this, but when I meet any other reader, I want to know, like, what are your top 3 favorite books? So I would definitely ask that. And I would ask, what video editing software do you use? What kind of camera do you use? More technical questions like that I'm fairly new to. And then I would definitely ask them how being on Booktube has affected their reading life. If it's made it, more rich and diverse, or if it feels like reading has become a job to them. I just want to hear an open-ended question on their thoughts with that. So that's what I would ask. Question 7, what challenges do you think starting a Booktube channel will be hardest to overcome? Well, obviously editing. Obviously, I need to get better at backgrounds. I just like filming right here because it's my desk, guys. I am going to put up some new bookshelves, and I might do the classic booktuber sit in front of the shelves thing later. Stay tuned. I think, though, the biggest challenge is just putting myself out there and being as authentic and truthful as I can be. I think I can do that, but it is difficult. There's a level of distance that, a camera creates. Sorry, I thought there was someone at my door. Just putting myself out there, I think, would be the next challenge for me to overcome. It's scary, and I want to be authentic, and I want to be truthful, and, I want to be silly and myself without fear of how I come across. I just, I want this to be as though I'm talking to one of my good friends about a book. That's my vision. So, question 8, when did you start reading? So we talked a little bit about this already, but I've read as far back as I can remember. One of my favorite books as a small child was Ira Sleeps Over. Gorgeous book. Love the characters in that. But another thing that I remember when I very first learned to read, which was in first grade, my teacher had a cast iron clawfoot bathtub in the back of the classroom, and if you behaved yourself, you were granted the privilege of sitting in that bathtub and just reading. There's a bunch of pillows and you could just sit amongst the pillows and read. And I think that really imprinted on me. And to this day, when I read, I think I just want to get back in that bathtub and just cozy up in my own world. So thank you, Mrs. Remold. Question number 9, where do you read? I don't read in the bathtub, although I could. I do have a huge jet tub that I don't use because I'm not a human tea bag. I am not a bathe. I do bathe. I'm not a bath person. So maybe for a video, I'll throw some pillows and books in there and we'll just see what happens. But I do read in bed, mostly. I used to read mostly at coffee shops. I have got away from that. Might try to do that again. I don't really read outside. I hate bugs. So yeah, mostly I read in bed. Question number 10, what kind of books do you like to read? So I already mentioned a few titles that I like to read that, back in the day I liked to read, but I still love literary fiction as my number one genre. And I do read a lot of different eras of that. But I must say, there's been a couple more literary fiction books that have come out recently that I've really enjoyed, like Mad Mabel, and Lost Lambs is probably the best new book that I've read in 5 years by Madeline Cash. Love that book. Yeah, I like harder fiction too, I definitely have read Infinite Jest. And I like to get more into Jonathan Franzen. I've read The Corrections, like I might have said, and yeah, I just love literary fiction. I don't love historical fiction. I think sometimes people think they go hand in hand a bit, but for me, not really. I mean, I love The Help. I love Water for Elephants. I will definitely read The Calamity Club by Catherine Stockett, who wrote The Help. But I just don't love, especially wartime. I cannot. I also don't like to read fantasy or sci-fi. But, that might be something that I explore with this channel because I do have a husband and he loves sci-fi and fantasy. And I've always, just not even given it a chance. So hopefully with this channel, I can kind of expand in that way as well. I love memoir, but it has to be funny or it has to be about somebody growing up in a cult. So as far as audiobooks go, I mainly listen to thrillers and mostly brand new thrillers because I do listen on Spotify. I use Libby a lot to get those new releases. But yeah, I'm open to any thriller suggestions you may have. Not a big Frida McFadden fan. I'm kind of more of a, what is her name? Gillian Flynn type. The last thing I'll say is that I do, a couple times a year I listen to a bunch of cheesy Christmas books on audio. I don't know why. And it's usually well before Christmas. But I don't love romance at all. I try to find a romance book that I can stand that isn't Christmassy. I love a Christmas book. They're all 3-star for me. Christmas books. None have gotten higher. But yeah, if you have any suggestions for romance, I'd like to hear them. I don't have a good track record with romance, but I do try because I'm a big rom-com fan, especially the 80s and 90s rom-coms. Early 2000s, I love rom-coms. I don't understand why I don't love those type of books. So we'll see. I guess that's it. We made it through. That wasn't so bad. If you're still here, thank you so much. I do have about 14 subscribers right now, and if any of you are here, thank you so much. And thank you to those who have commented on my videos. It's been so fun interacting with you. I will be filming a July TBR, and I will do a time capsule part 2. If you weren't here for that, it's like I said, books that I had in storage for about 15-20 years. And I did the first half, and now I'm going to do the second half. So I didn't keep a lot of books in my life when I've done a lot of moving and such. So these books are really dear to me and kind of would be a good jumping off place if you want to kind of get a feel for what I read. I also, in the mail, I got a brick, the little cube that blocks you out of your phone. So I'm going to do some experimenting with that. So that's kind of what's coming up. And, you know, again, I want to thank you. And I'm really excited to be part of this community. Please introduce yourself in the comments below. I'd love to watch some of your videos and just get to know people. So happy reading. See you next time.